Annelise, I was really intrigued by one particular line there from Joe Biden. He spoke about decency among the White House having been missing the past 4 years. He said, if you're ever working with me and I hear you treating another colleague with disrespect, talking down to someone, I will fire you on the spot. That's some warning.
That is indeed. He's really laying down the gauntlet there for his workers, and this is going to be an interesting few years when we have a country that's so divided at the moment. He harked over to that idea during his speech about having to show more respect for other Americans, in particular those you don't agree with, because things have really gotten quite divisive here. And that's something I've certainly noticed when you've been out speaking to Americans, is that quite a few people, once they disagree with someone politically, they'll just cut them off altogether. And a lot of it ends up being Facebook unfriending, which I know sounds frivolous, but this is really one of the only realms where people start to interact with people outside of their normal areas of life. And so that's when you start not really listening to other people and start being quite offended quite frequently. So this is the big challenge going forward, and that's, you can hear there from what Joe Biden said, a push for civility. And that really harked back to that idea too of what he has described as America's uncivil war, which I think is just the most important takeaway from what he said today. But you're absolutely right. Before, he has been straight down to business, to the Oval Office in the White House after it was, per COVID-19 requirements, disinfected. And we've seen that he's now enacted already 17 executive orders signed. Now, this is over a range of different topics, including COVID-19. He's introduced a 100-day mask mandate. COVID also stopping the withdrawal from the United Nations World Health Organization. Now, he's also moving quite quickly on climate change. You heard there, that's quick priority for the Biden administration to act on that. He's already ordered that the US rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. Of course, there'll be more formalities to come with that. Immigration, he's re-permitting Muslim entry after that Muslim travel ban that was introduced by former President Donald Trump, and also halting border wall construction, another key policy that we saw Donald Trump bring to the 2016 election. So this is already a time when Joe Biden's defining what his priorities are. He's up against some serious challenges, but he says his administration is ready to act.
COVID, and it's requiring, as I said all along, where I have authority, mandating masks be worn, social distancing be kept on federal property, on interstate commerce, etc. So this is the first one I'm signing.
It wasn't a long inauguration speech, but one that a lot of analysts seem to think hit the right notes. We know every leader talks about governing for all Americans, but he spent a lot of time on this, Joe Biden, as you alluded to, this line about wanting to end the uncivil war.
I just think it is such a key point of what Joe Biden had to say. He talked about that idea of America being divided at the moment and uniting the country. And you're right in that most leaders do say that they govern for all Americans, but that really hasn't been a priority of at least the last 4 years. Donald Trump has been pretty vocal, saying that he's governing for the Americans that supported his values, and he thought that was the majority of them. Indeed, it was between 2016 and 2020. But this time we have a very divided nation really struggling through the COVID-19 pandemic, and the economic fallout is the real killer at the moment for so many families are struggling when they wouldn't normally be. So he said that it's time to start engaging in a more civil way and evoked that kind of division that America saw during the Civil War without going as far as saying that that's the level of disagreement that they're facing.
I promise you I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue.
Now, of course, the Biden administration also brings with it a new foreign policy approach, and this is going to be the interesting challenge for Australia and how we interact with the United States. As we've heard there, he's going to make a priority of climate change and adhering to those UN treaties like the Paris Climate Accord. So that's going to be an interesting proposition for Australia, but also we saw this discussion in his speech about how America is going to start interacting differently on the global stage, and they're going to start by leading with a better example.
America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And will lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example.
Essentially, that's a move away from just America first. Joe Biden there, yet again, it's going to be a very different president on the world stage, which we'll see in the coming months. Also really interesting, I mean, one of Joe Biden's pledges, essentially, is to raise taxes, particularly around company tax cuts. It'll be fascinating to see how this goes in the Senate with, well, no margin for error there for any Democrats that want to peel off. And Donald Trump has made this a focus as well, Annelise.
He has. It was part of his farewell speech. Now, Donald Trump, as he said he wouldn't do, didn't participate in the inauguration ceremony. Instead, he flew out of Joint Base Andrews on his last Air Force One flight. It's there he organised a military send-off. It wasn't quite the crowds he might have been anticipating, even though quite a few supporters did gather to welcome him to his new home in Florida, or his new full-time home, I should say, because he has been a frequent visitor to Mar-a-Lago. What we have seen from his speech is more of the unedited Donald Trump that we're used to. After his final speech was posted to the White House Twitter account, he's still deplatformed from social media. But it's there he said that he's proud of what they've done as an administration. He used the sports analogy that he doesn't feel like he left anything on the field, but also said that if there are any successes of the Biden administration in the economy, it's because of the hard work that he and his team did.
We also got tax cuts, the largest tax cut and reform in the history of our country by far. I hope they don't raise your taxes. But if they do, I told you so.
So that's the serious side, Annelise. You've got to entertain yourself as well while we're going through all of this. And Bernie Sanders got a bit of attention.
He did. He's already taken off as a bit of a meme because of his attire. Now, Bernie Sanders is known for being a bit thrifty. He wore the same coat he's pretty much worn all the time since at least the last few years, and it's actually already become a meme with this coat that he's wearing. But it was his mittens that were really the star of the show today, because they were just so practical in a field of fashion that was all quite forward and formal. They're also made from completely renewable resources and were actually hand-knitted by a teacher in Vermont. So he was obviously making a bit of a statement there. Most of the ladies that we saw on stage, including First Lady Jill Biden and also Vice President Kamala Harris, did choose American designers too. So there was that focus on American purchases, at least for this time around.
They were made out of recycled plastic bottles and wool repurposed from sweaters. I'm going to give a shout out to Paul Murray here. He knows this will speak to my heart. This is sustainability on steroids.
I was going to say, I think you might wear those, yeah. I don't know if they'd be quite my cup of tea, but...
Look, good